Hey folks, this is Kelani. I want to talk to you about the events in Wildstar which lead up to the discovery of Nexus and why every space cowboy, mercenary and overlord is desperate to get their hands on its secrets. The story of Wildstar begins before you step foot on the lush expanses of the legendary planet, about 2,000 years before. We'll explore the founding and the rise of the Galactic Dominion, as well as the rebellion leading to the formation of the Exiles and how each race was assimilated into their corresponding faction. To start with, we need to look at the world of Cassus, home planet of the humans, also known as Cassians. Approximately 2,000 years ago, Cassus experienced a period of rapid technological advancement, leading to their development of spaceflight and interstellar exploration. These feats gained the attention of the Makari, a mechanical servant race who relayed these achievements to their masters, the Elden. The Elden were the original inhabitants of Nexus and were unrivaled in almost every way, described as being a hyper-advanced race, creating treasures and wonders beyond imagining. Deciding that the Cassians would be the perfect race to establish the first dominion of space, the Elden sent Makari ambassadors to present the humans of Cassus with an offer: hand over the legendary swords maiden Trisania Toria and be granted a gift of immeasurable value. Refuse and be destroyed. Without much hesitation, the Cassians and Trisania agreed. The swords maiden left with her attendants and were never seen again. Fast forward 32 years and the Cassians received their precious gift, an extraordinary human-Elden hybrid known as Dominus the Half-Blood. Bearing gifts of powerful Elden technology to the people of his mother's homeworld, the message of Dominus was simple: swear loyalty to him and together they would rule the greatest empire the galaxy had ever seen. He was welcomed with open arms and crowned Emperor of the newly established Dominion. This empire would go on to become the powerhouse it is today, controlling a vast array of worlds and destroying anyone who would oppose them. With the Makari to guide, nurture and ensure the success of the Dominion, their power grew and influence spread. 3 centuries passed and the Makari determined their military needed fleshing out, and they had the perfect planet and race in mind. The Dominion turned their glaring eyes towards Mikros, homeworld of the Draken. The Empire landed a formidable military force on Mikros, and the Draken hordes answered in turn, prepared for an all-out war with the Dominion invaders. The battle was named the Red River War and shook Mikros to its core. Acting on the council of the Makari, the current Emperor Lumini Azrion issued a challenge to the reigning High Clan Lord Zur: meet him in single combat with the victor ruling supreme over the planet Mikros. Zur accepted immediately. Hours later they met on the field of Kazor, a massive gladiatorial arena. The duel was fierce and brutal. The Emperor's skill and training eventually overcame Zur's ferocity and strength. With the death of their leader, the remaining Draken swore eternal loyalty to Azrion the Conqueror and his descendants. The Draken have led the war machine of the Dominion military ever since. With the brawn of the Dominion taken care of, the Makari turned their ambitions towards recruiting the brains. After scouting prospective races, the Makari observers took an interest in the primitive yet very intelligent Chewer of the forest world Bezgalore. In addition to showing an uncanny grasp of science and mechanical engineering, they were also remarkably devious and competitive. Predicting that a species unconstrained by economic or moral considerations could prove useful, the Makari approached the Chewer. The Makari presented the Chewer with several instructive examples of simple Dominion technology, hoping to accelerate their industrial development. Efforts to kickstart the Chewer's advancement exceeded even the Makari's projections. Their zeal for industry and science ravaged their homeworld, replacing their forests with factories, and consumed most of their natural resources within a century. The Chewer joined the Dominion out of a need for the resources their planet could no longer provide. Many technological advancements, especially in weaponry, came from these crazy little rodents. Shortly after the Chewer joined, approximately 600 years after the birth of the Dominion, the Elden disappeared. Despite the loss of the Eldens, the Dominion steadily took control of the galaxy over the next 1,000 years through intimidation, political intrigue, and impressive military conquests. But not every race was willing to lose their free will. Not every race bowed without question. The first of those to fight back were the Granok. The Granok were a primitive race, but the Dominion saw great potential in these hulking giants of living stone. The Dominion sent Makari ambassadors to their home planet of Nox with the typical message: technology and knowledge for obedience and indoctrination. When presented with the offer, the Granok smashed the Makari into smoking piles of scrap metal. The reigning emperor was infuriated by the news of his ambassador's demise. He declared war on the Granok, and the Dominion legions were deployed in full force to eradicate the natives. Armed with primitive weaponry, the Granok warriors fought bravely, but were no match for the Dominion's superior technology. Refusing to accept defeat, a young warlord named Durek led daring raids into Dominion camps, stealing weapons, armour and other powerful military hardware. Within a few weeks, the growing ranks of Granok insurgents began to turn the tide. The Dominion legions were driven back to planet Cassus, and Durek and his followers returned to their tribes. Instead of being greeted as heroes and saviours, they were outcast for breaking the sacred doctrines of the Way of the Stone, their victory a result of stolen technology and dishonest tactics. Unwelcome on their homeworld and exiled by their own people, Durek Stonebreaker and his followers took to the stars, hiring themselves out as galactic mercenaries. As the Dominion's power grew, so did their need to exert more control over the growing population of their mighty empire. A number of unpopular policies were enacted which led to civil unrest. What started out as peaceful protests in the streets of Cassian cities soon became skirmishes between locals and authorities. As tensions escalated, Dominion military leaders ordered brutal crackdowns against all who opposed the new order. When the military turned weapons on its own citizens, Seric Brightland, a highly decorated admiral of the Cassian fleet, rebelled against his commanders. Commandeering his own warship, the Star of Dominus, Brightland led Cassian rebels on a series of devastating attacks, leaving the Dominion fleet in shambles. This was the first act of the Exiles. Unfortunately, the Admiral's early success had cost the Exiles dearly in both lives and materials. When the Dominion fleet finally caught up to them, the ragtag fleet of the now exiled Cassians seemingly had nowhere left to run. Realizing their chances of survival, Brightland set his ship on course with the centre of the Dominion fleet. Surprised by the suicide maneuver, the Dominion warships broke formation and the other rebel starships were able to escape. Against all odds, the Star of Dominus survived, but Admiral Brightland had sustained terrible injuries in the battle and was placed into cryo-freeze in order to preserve his life. Renamed the Gambler's Ruin in Brightland's honour, the vessel was converted into an arc ship capable of being their new home in the vastness of space, and the rebels fled for their lives across the stars. Sometime after, another race caught the attention of the Dominion. The Mordesh were one of the most technologically advanced and culturally significant civilizations in the galaxy, particularly known for their alchemists who had long since solved the transmutation of lead into gold and moved on to bigger and more ambitious projects. They had rose so high that the Dominion was all too eager to invite them into their ranks, and the Mordesh all too happy to accept. One of their brightest scientists, a Mordesh by the name of Victor Lazarin, invented the Everlife Elixir, an actual potion of eternal life. His discovery was shared with the rest of their homeworld, Grismara, who happily partook of the elixir. The potion worked wonders. Sadly, the Everlife Elixir also granted immortality to diseases and pathogens, which mutated and grew until they became the Nightmarish Contagion, an illness that causes the mind and body of the victim to rot, turning them into the mindless cannibals named the Ravenous. The Dominion quickly abandoned the Mordesh, forcing a planet-wide quarantine that turned their home into a prison. Many struggled through the anarchy to beg for help, only to be gunned down in cold blood. Horrified with what he had set in motion, Victor Lazarin quickly set to a cure for his race. With limited resources, little time, and 80% of Grismara already dead or ravenous, he had to make do with the Vitalis Serum, a chemical that temporarily keeps the contagion at bay and suppresses the psychological symptoms. Despite failing to cure the disease, the serum saved the few remaining Mordesh. In desperation, they turned to the Exiles, who smuggled them through the Dominion blockade and assimilated them into the faction. With their new friends aboard, the Exiles drifted through space, the Dominion fleet an ever-present threat as they kept up their relentless pursuit. With a desperate need to take on supplies, the Exiles found themselves on the forest world of Arborea. The native race of Aurins appreciated the exiled humans' good-natured independence and welcomed them into their homes. Friendship soon blossomed between the two parties. Fearful of unleashing the wrath of the Dominion upon the Aurin, the Exiles took on much-needed supplies and quickly moved on. Despite careful precautions, the Dominion traced the path of the fleet and eventually discovered the location of Arborea. As punishment for aiding the rebels, the Dominion declared unconditional sovereignty over the Aurin's forest kingdom and sent an army of devastating planet reapers to collect the Empire's rightful due. The Aurin fought back courageously, but the planet reapers were monstrous mechanical resource harvesters designed to withstand all but the heaviest firepower. Suffering heavy losses, the Aurin were forced to fall back, watching helplessly as their beautiful verdant homeworld was torn apart. Desperate, the newly crowned Aurin queen, Malaya Everstar, sent out a distress signal to her exile friends who soon formulated a daring rescue plan. Aided by fearless Granok mercenaries, the exiled faced off against the Dominion and landed rescue ships on Arborea, but it soon became clear that not all Aurin could be saved. Broken-hearted, the queen escaped from Arborea's surface but promised those left behind that one day she would return and reclaim their homeworld. With the Orange survivors swelling the exiles' ranks, the already lacking stores of food and water were stretched dangerously thin in order to support their growing numbers. To make matters worse, their ships had been severely damaged in the rescue operation, leaving them stranded in space. As the hours passed and the engineers worked desperately to repair breached hulls and blasted engines, the threat of death or destruction closed in around the rebellion. Their salvation came in the form of a message from one of their pathfinders, Dorian Walker. He had set out on a desperate gamble just before the rescue mission on Arborea, a gamble that paid off. The message was that of hope, a new home for the exiles. Dorian had found the legendary planet of Nexus. News of Dorian's discovery spread quickly through the fleet. Hopelessness and despair gave way to an elated anticipation of things to come. Within a few hours of the announcement, leaders from all the races in the fleet met aboard the Gambler's Ruin to discuss what should happen next. Each shared a common bond, driven from their homeworlds in the wake of the Dominion's aggressive expansion, and Nexus presented a place of refuge where they could rebuild their shattered lives. Despite the miraculous news, they understood such a journey was going to be extremely difficult. Aside from the unknown mysteries and dangers awaiting them on the planet, 1,000 other challenges needed to be addressed and overcome if they were going to establish a community strong enough to survive. Their discussions lasted for days, with spirited arguments about everything from merchants' rights to law enforcement to military service. Eventually they hammered out the major tenets of an agreement that would come to be known as the Exile Accords. Signed by all of the leaders present, the Accords represented a commitment to building a free society on planet Nexus, and a promise they would stand united against anyone or anything who threatened their new home. As the ink was drying on the Exile Accords, the engineers completed their repairs, and the word was sent out to prepare the fleet for hyperjump. Provisions were stored, hatches were battened, and all non-essential crew were directed to cryopods for the long trip beyond the fringe. As the hyperdrive of the Gambler's Ruin rumbled to life, the exhausted and hopeful exiles closed their eyes and drifted quietly into the warm embrace of the cryosleep, dreaming of the new lives awaiting them on Nexus. News of the discovery did not escape the Dominion's ears. Since their leader had come from Nexus, they believed the newly discovered planet to be property of the Dominion and represents the fulfillment of an ancient destiny. That's where you come in. Take up arms with the Galactic Empire of the Dominion, or assist with the exiles' attempts of creating a new home for themselves. Either way, you're going to be exploring Nexus to uncover the reason behind the Elden's disappearance and what that means for the rest of the galaxy. Thanks for watching, folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.